Tunisian migrants ceased. We think that there's more than 300 migrants who died among Tunisian departures. There's still a lot of disappeared, over 200 disappeared in Tunisia, i.e. people whom we do not know whether they have died or not, and their families have mobilized. The situation in Libya, with the uprising, civil war, and then the international military intervention led by NATO and mainly Western states. This, as you know as well, led to really important movements of people. Over 700,000 people fled to neighboring countries, and only barely beyond 25,000 actually fled to mainly Lampedusa, and 1,000 or 2,000 to Malta. So of course this is completely in contradiction with these kind of emergency discourses by EU politicians that were threatening, that were claiming that the EU was threatened to see 1,500,000 people fleeing across the Mediterranean to Europe, which of course justified exceptional measures to prevent that migration. And actually, over 700,000 people fled to neighboring countries, 25,000 from Libya actually arrived in Lampedusa. But the conditions of the crossings were extremely dangerous. As you, I'm sure, know very well, the African, particularly the black African population in Libya was targeted either on racist grounds, but also on grounds of allegedly being linked to mercenaries supporting Gaddafi, and many migrants were actually basically forced into boats, deprived of food, any communication means, and just stuffed into boats till they were, could barely go forward. And this led, in fact, to over 1,500 deaths from migrants leaving Libya. So you see that, in fact, if there were more than 300, we do not know exactly, of course, deaths leaving Tunisia, and with approximately the same number of arrivals, there were over 1,500 deaths leaving, among those leaving Libya. So you can clearly see that the crossing was made much more difficult for those leaving Libya. And the crisis was really for the whole movement that, hey, these people are dying in, excuse me, this is a slide that shows the overall number of deaths between 1993 and 2009. And this slide, you really see the progression of deaths as related to the closure of the EU, the militarization of the EU's maritime borders. And this is a case I'm going to discuss in a second, but what you see is that the trajectory that was being used by migrants, particularly those fleeing Libya, was exactly within NATO's maritime surveillance area, right? Populated, as I'm going to explain again in a second, by over 40 military warships, overflown by the most sophisticated aircrafts. Basically, NATO ships were both on the coast of Libya, where they were attacking Gaddafi positions in cities, etc. And they were patrolling this entire space, which you see in purple here, which extends way beyond towards Greece. They were patrolling this space in order to impose the maritime embargo on Libya, right? i.e., their job was to monitor extremely closely the movement of any vessel going into or going out of of Libya so as to prevent the inflow of weapons, mercenaries, etc. So, you know, basically the biggest number of deaths in the Mediterranean Sea was spatially and temporarily coexisting with, very simply, the most surveyed maritime waters in the world. So, very quickly, organizations, coalitions of NGOs said, you know, this is enough. No, we can't. Until then, really, organizations had been counting the dead, basically, denouncing those dead, but in effect felt quite, helpless. And this just brought the situation to such a paroxysm that new strategies had to be found. And I think it's important as well to keep in mind the movement of the families of the disappeared, for example, in Tunisia. But the other two important strategies, I think, were the legal strategy, using the legal sphere for contentious legal cases, and the other strategy was new forms of political mobilization and intervention at sea, which is the Boats for People campaign, which I'll discuss in a minute. I want to show you very briefly a video which